Daylight saving time is coming to an end on Sunday, November the 3rd for most of us in the United States, unless you live in Arizona, a state that does not honor that. Good for you. But for most of us, this is going to be a shift where we supposedly are getting an extra hour of sleep, but a lot of people can begin to feel off and people start going into seasonal depression, anxiety, weight gain. And I really want to support you as we shift into this time so you don't necessarily have to experience that. So today I'm sharing with you a talk that I did over on Instagram with my friend Carly Rose. I will make sure to put her information in the show notes if you want to go follow her. And we are going to talk about some strategies and how to understand your light environment, how to shift your light environment so that you feel your best. I'm also going to put in the show notes a longer video I did a couple months ago called The Do's and Don'ts of Shifting into Winter that will answer a lot of questions about things like red light therapy, tanning beds, cold therapy, sauna, food, shifting meal times, things like that, so that you can go and check that out. Now, we talk a lot about my app, my new app, my Circadian app as well in this conversation. And you can use code Sarah K to get 3 weeks free on Android and 1 month free on Apple. It's just really there to help you optimize your light environment, especially this time of year when things are shifting and changing, so that, again, you can avoid that seasonal depression, anxiety, and weight gain that a lot of people experience in the winter. So I hope you enjoy this bonus conversation and have a really wonderful rest of your day.
How it's coming up in a few days. And I first heard about like this mindset or thoughts about it a few years ago. But before we get into that, I kind of want to talk about the app first.
Yeah,
because
sure.
Everyone is messaging me about it. And okay, for those who don't already know what it is, do you mind just like prefacing a little like short intro about it?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So it's basically an app to help you optimize your light environment. And that's really what I talk about on my page. And I know that's something that you talk about as well, is like how important having your light environment optimized is for your metabolism, for your hormones, for your sleep, for your immune system, like everything. And so what the app really does is it just basically tells you like, hey, these are the best times for you to be outside, be exposed to sunlight. Here's what's a good amount of time for you to go outside when UVB is available, to do some safe sun exposure so you don't overdo it. And then the lux meter is really helpful at just kind of keeping you honest about going outdoors. Like today, it's really overcast, really gray, but it's still bright enough for my metabolism and my brain to really get the message and get what it needs in order for it to operate optimally. So the lux meter really helps you to just stay honest. Like indoors is pretty dim and our brain needs a certain amount of brightness for certain functions to operate efficiently. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. And I'm excited to talk more about the Lux later on too, because I know a lot of my audience had questions about it, and you were the person that introduced me to Lux too. But I'm curious, like what testimonials are you hearing from people right now after using the app? Because a couple people have messaged me already that they're so excited to introduce it into their lifestyle. I've already noticed that it's helped me lose weight, which I wasn't expecting. I mean, I was expecting that, but also I wasn't, because I've been like, as you know, we talked about in the last live, I added carnivore and introduced carbs. So I was like, oh, of course I'm going to like gain weight back probably. And that has not been the case at all. That's a huge credit to the app and getting out in the sun. So yeah, I'm just curious what everyone's saying about their experience with the app and the health testimonials they've experienced.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, people are just really enjoying, like I said, having all that information in one place, because we talk about this importance of going outside in the morning and like these 2 windows of time that are really, really important for you to go outside in the morning. And I think people are really just enjoying being able to have access to that and feeling more alert, feeling more energetic, and then sleeping better, you know, and using that lux meter to optimize their evening environment. Because as we'll talk about when we get into lux a little bit more, all the biohackers really talk about blocking blue light after dark, which is important. You want to get a nice pair of blue blockers, but you also need to make sure that it's dim enough so that your body can make melatonin. So blocking blue and green light, important, but also having a dim enough environment so that your body can truly wind down and begin that melatonin process when you do go to sleep is important. And so a lot of people are saying, I'm sleeping better, I have more energy, definitely weight loss. People are telling me they're losing weight and they haven't even changed their diet. Like they feel like their appetite's more regulated. And we'll talk a little bit more about why something as simple as shifting your light environment can completely shift your metabolism.
Yeah, that was I mean, that's how it logically made sense to me when you had spoken about it in this way, how when you get certain lux of light, it impacts not only your hormones, but your metabolism, then your insulin and your blood sugar. So it just, of course, makes sense why that would impact our weight and also your mood. And on the last slide, we talked about stimulation too. So like if everyone's just getting the blue light, overly stimulated, cortisol goes up. Yeah, all impacted with our weight and our mood and our relationships. And again, I want to bring that into this live too, because I brought it up on the last live, but you know, it's crazy how much like being on top of your sunlight exposure impacts your relationships with friendships, partners, because it's really the foundation of everything. And yeah, I mean, late last night I was reading my book under red light, and just before I went to bed, I was just thinking about, it is just so bizarre how I'm inside this room right now and in this house all day. Like, it's just really strange. Like I know people probably say this all the time. It's like, you know, when you think of something, but it just hits you in that moment so hard. Yeah. And I thought, wow, it is just so weird how I am on the second floor with this red light and in a room and always, you know, going to bed in this room and maybe being in my house for hours throughout the day, obviously. And it never has it been like this before in history. Like, this is all brand new. Like, this technology is so brand new. Like, we don't even know the impacts of it yet. So yeah, it's really wild. And, you know, my fiance and I were walking on the beach, and I was like, hey, daylight savings is on Sunday. So, you know, we need to make sure we have an event on Sunday. So I'm like, we need to make sure that we're on top of the timing. And it was, again, one of those moments where I've been hearing people talk about daylight savings, and I've heard a bit about like the conspiracies behind it. But in that moment, it just really hit me like, whoa, daylight savings, like this is just something that happens and we don't question it too much. And I thought, this must be so bizarre for our bodies to be in the circadian rhythm of the time. And perhaps maybe we're not supposed to set back our clocks, because that just completely shifts our timing and the rhythm we've been in for the past however many months. So I would love if you could share like what you've learned about daylight savings over the years. And it's also common knowledge too. Like, a lot of doctors and professionals in the conventional medicine do talk about it too. And I think that, you know, not that necessarily credits a lot of things these days, but also it's important that it is, you know, recognized in conventional medicine too.
Yeah. I mean, so daylight savings in the spring, when that starts, can be really disruptive for people. That's when we see like an increase in heart attacks, strokes, cardiovascular events. Usually there's a huge uptick the Monday following that time change in the spring. In the winter time, there's another shift. So the daylight savings time ends, and, you know, we are supposed to like gain an hour, get an extra hour of sleep. But whenever we shift the patterns that way, we're shifting our cortisol, melatonin patterns. So daytime, we're supposed to make the right amount of cortisol, more in the morning. It's supposed to wane as we go through the day. And then in the nighttime, in the evening time, as long as we're blocking the blue and green light appropriately and keeping our evening environment dim enough, that's when our bodies make melatonin. And that's when we're supposed to undergo all these really, really deep repair states that we need. And that's why blue light at night and cancer are so intricately linked. Blue light at night, I mean, you can really find, like you said, whatever papers, science, people obsess over these things, but there is adequate data to show that artificial light at night is linked to a host of hormonal cancers, hormone imbalances, metabolic diseases, obesity, Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety, all this stuff. So anytime that we shift the natural light dark cycles, we're going to see an uptick in these sorts of things. And what a lot of people don't understand, in the summertime, people are so obsessed with like vitamin D. And in the wintertime, everyone's obsessed with supplementing vitamin D. The thing is that melatonin docks to the vitamin D receptor and can mimic a lot of the things that vitamin D is supposed to be doing for us. And a vitamin D supplement is only doing there's like dozens of vitamin D metabolites that are cancer preventative, immune system modulating. And the D3 that we measure is like right here. And all these other metabolites that are made when we're in UVB light are over here. but in the wintertime, we're supposed to have the hormone of melatonin be the dominant hormone to really help us to preserve our vitamin D stores, to help us get into these deeper repair programs, rest states. And so, what ends up happening a lot when the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, is that people don't correct. They, continue living like it's summer for the entire year. And we really do see increase in hormone imbalances, seasonal affective disorder, depression, anxiety, weight gain. And what's supposed to happen in wintertime, when especially the days are shorter, nights are longer, is we're supposed to actually get leaner. We're actually supposed to go into these deeper repair states, but we have our lives set up so that we don't have to follow these natural cycles. Like nobody, until like, that's why I have an app to basically tell you, like, all right, you need to go outside. It's sunrise time. It's UVA time. Okay. It's sunset time. Put on your blue blockers, get your environment right so that you can get adequate sleep, because we're not supposed to, it's common for people to suffer with these things in the winter, but it's not really normal for us to have these dramatic increases in these sorts of things. So, just when this shift happens, it's like we need to adjust and we need to correct so that we're synced up to them more than what our society does, essentially.
I have two questions for you regarding all that. So one, would a solution be to not put the clocks back, like in an ideal world? Because obviously some states like Arizona, parts of Arizona doesn't do it. So do those places notice less heart attacks and issues because they don't do the setback? So that's something we could do, right? Because they originally did daylight savings for the farmers. Mm-hmm. But I was talking about it with my dad, and he was saying that it doesn't necessarily need to happen anymore. Yeah. I haven't looked into it myself, but so essentially it doesn't need to happen, and our bodies would be like meant. It reminds me of like the calendar, how some people say there's not 12 months, there's 13 months.
Like 13 months. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like we're going off of this time that has been not even cyclical with our biology, but just this textbook time.
Right.
And it just feels very bizarre. And it's like, whoa, I just feel like, okay, so it can happen. Like if we were just all to be like, no, we don't need to do daylight savings. Like that is a possibility.
Yeah. There's been legislature to try to stop it for years now. And I keep on hearing, I'm like, oh, they're going to stop it this year. And of course they don't. But, I feel really blessed because I can make my own schedule. So it doesn't really disrupt me because I'm still pretty much getting up every day around sunrise time anyway. So if you shift that, like my body's still going to align with that natural time regardless. I'm still going to block blue light, put blue blockers on after sunset. I shift my meal times to be a little bit earlier this time of year. I start doing a little bit of fasting this time of year, more so than I do in the summer when it's like abundance and the abundance of light and UV light in particular to help us with those simple sugar fruits because we have the UV receptor on cytochrome 1 in the mitochondria. So our body is actually tuned in to eat a little bit more carbohydrates, simple sugar fruits in the summertime when there's more of an abundance, and then to dial back a little bit in the winter time, do a little bit more scarcity fasting, unless you're working to, repair your metabolism. But 94% of people are metabolically unhealthy, and it's not going to hurt them to eat dinner a little bit earlier and shift things back, So our bodies are really designed to be on this, but I understand people, they have to work, they have kids, they have schedules. And so, what I tell people is like, look, you got to try to keep your morning as restorative as you can, because if you're up trying to do 5 a.m. fasted workouts, trying to fit all this stuff in the morning, especially in the winter time when it's more of a repair time. Your body is really naturally supposed to make more melatonin. That is biologically what we're supposed to do. Summer, hormone, vitamin D. It's a hormone D. Winter, hormone, melatonin, right? It's yin and yang. We're supposed to shift. We're not always supposed to stay in perpetual summer, but that's our society. That's how we've set it up. So we have to hack it as much as we can. And that's why the app is really helpful. If you have to be up with kids before sunrise doing stuff or up for work, try to keep it restorative. Don't go on social media. Don't go into your emails. I have to stay off my WhatsApp, because I have friends all over the world that have been up for 6 hours when I get up and they've already sent me like 5 messages. I'm like, no, I can't look at that. Don't look at your Slack. I have to be very strict with my morning routine. And if I do have a kid that's up, my blue blockers are on, the lights in the home are dim, I'm drinking mineral water. We're just trying to keep it as restorative as we can. And then when that notification pops up, oh, sunrise is here, even daybreak. This morning I was up because God bless my husband, he was like snoring this morning. And I was like, I can't sleep anymore. So I just got up and I went downstairs and I just kind of like, just rested on the couch, did some molecular hydrogen inhalation, just kind of chilled. But when the daybreak thing came on, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go outside at daybreak because that's a ton of red and infrared. I'm just going to go outside and do some grounding. And grounding is a really powerful thing we can do because that temperature of the earth is also informing our body. The temperature of the earth changes through the day, through the year. It's also information for our body, for our brain about what time of day it is, what time of year it is. And so that can be really supportive. But anything we can do to help support our bodies with these light and dark cycles is going to help our overall health.
Yeah. And I was walking with my fiance on at the park near us. We have like a beautiful preserve by us and we go for a sunset and there's like all these owls and it's gorgeous. And I was talking to him about how you had mentioned that you did Ashtanga yoga in the morning around like 6 a.m. and then you were under the blue light and you thought you were doing something amazing for your health. Like a lot of people will go work out early in the morning or maybe do a Pilates class on their phone or X, Y, and Z. But again, it's like the light environment comes before exercise and food. And that's something I've learned from Jack Cruz, like where he says, no, it's the light environment, then food, then exercise. And when he said that, it just clicked in my brain. Like, wow, I didn't actually like kind of think of it like that in my mind. I think everyone just thinks the food is like the whole pie or the exercise and food. So, but I was telling my fiance about that. And I was explaining to him how when we look at our phones, no matter what time of day it is, but how it impacts the autonomic nervous system and then the sympathetic nervous system. And it just, as I've been learning about all of this, it's been so interesting because it's things I've been feeling in my body, but now it's like the science behind it to back it up. Because like your Ashtanga experience, I feel like when I'm on social media sometimes and overusing blue light, the best I can describe it is that I feel like, this could be like metaphysical and spiritual and also scientific, but it almost feels like a part of me sometimes like fractures off, like in my mind, and I can be back in the real world with my fiance or doing something, and I feel like a part of my brain is still existing somewhere else, and it feels like I'm living in two worlds at one time. And then when I've been hearing from the quantum health community talking about the nervous system aspect of blue light and the autonomic nervous system going into the sympathetic, it made sense to me because it's like, oh yeah, because when we use our phones, we're literally putting in our nervous system in an entirely different state. So we're like, your brain, because of the flicker and the lux and all the things, it's like changing our brain. So I was like, oh wow, like I didn't have words to describe this before, but I feel it. Maybe I'm just very sensitive too, but I've been feeling this way for a long time, and I thought, oh wow, maybe this is something like very spiritual, and it is too, but also like the science behind it here. So I would love if you can drop in deeper into that, like the autonomic nervous system aspect of the blue light, because I think a lot of people are experiencing a lot of like anxiety or like this overstimulation. I know that's like a big conversation on Instagram right now, like people being short and like bratty because they're overstimulated. So can you chat about like how that works?
Yeah. I mean, so light is a nutrient, light is information for our brain. And this whole conversation around daylight savings and, understanding light dark cycles, it is also about the nervous system, because the brain, your eyes are actually brain tissue on the outside of your body, and they're feeding your brain information about what time of day it is, what time of year it is. Every single hormone in your body, every single digestive function, thyroid, like every single system in your body is running from this clock in your brain. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is giving instructions to your body. And so your phone is telling your body, number one, all that blue light and the stimulation of socializing and likes and, you know, looking at reels and scrolling and all of that, which I'm not going to act like I don't ever do it, because I definitely get drawn into it. And then I'm like, God, why do I feel like crap? Because I just let myself get sucked into that nonsense, you know? So it happens to all of us. Like, I don't think any of us are perfect, but like, I know what's going on when I'm doing that. Number one, it's messing with your dopamine big time. A wrong amount of dopamine spiking. And dopamine also is we're supposed to have a nice, beautiful level of dopamine in response to UVA light. You know, in your eyes, the aromatic amino acids in your eyes capture those photons of light from UVA light. That's when you synthesize serotonin, dopamine, beta endorphin. All those things are supposed to happen and come online in the morning in a natural way. But the phone, even if you have your phone screen on red and you're wearing blue blockers, like I teach people to do, you can still get that dopamine release from the interaction, you know, so you have to be careful with that. But the blue light in particular is also speaking to your brain, because blue light is what tells your brain, like the amount of blue light in your environment is what tells your brain what time of day it is. And so the blue light on your phone is informing your brain that it's noon in the middle of summer, essentially. That's the Kelvin, or the color temperature of your phone is about 5,700, 6,000. That's giving your brain that information like, hey, it's noon in the middle of June, but it's also, unfortunately, there's no red and infrared to help balance that out, like we get when we're outdoors even on. So yeah, and the lux as well from your phone is actually very dim in comparison to what would be outside at that time. So the whole signal is just, I don't know what the right word it would be, just wrecked. You know, it's not biologically appropriate. And so your brain is just literally confused. And we talk about hormone imbalance so often. Well, the hormone production starts in mitochondria. Mitochondria make pregnenolone, and depending on your perceived sense of stress, I know you've got my leptin program, and I go into this like 45-minute talk on this on day 4, but mitochondria say, hey, make pregnenolone. And that pregnenolone is supposed to be put down the cortisol pathway and the sex steroid hormone pathway. But if you're in fight flight, if your nervous system is all wrecked because of blue light, because of dopamine, it's going to take from what it's needing to put down the sex steroid hormone pathway and put it down the cortisol pathway. And so you're going to have hormone imbalances. This is going to impact your thyroid. So it affects your entire system.
Thank you for sharing. I cut out for like a couple of seconds there. I'm not sure it's funny. But you want to know what it was? It was, I have the reminder on my phone, like, hey, you've been using your phone for X amount of hours today, so it's time to turn it off. I'm like, okay, maybe that was supposed to come up so I could share. That it is a lifesaver. But you know, with what you're talking about, and that kind of just reminds me of like the notifications of your app. Like your app does the same thing. And it's like, I think that in regards to what you had said about the dopamine, I think that's been like the biggest shift I've noticed since using your app, because I notice now that I'm not getting my dopamine from these aspects as strongly anymore. Like I do feel the withdrawal. And it's interesting because I'm like, okay, like I put a timer on my Instagram, so it only allows me to go on a certain amount of times a day. So I notice now I'll like go do other things to get dopamine, like check my bank account, or I'll go invest money, or I like try to have all these different ways. And it's funny. It's like, yeah, it is like this withdrawal. But what I love is that it was really prominent the first week of me using it. And now it's just miraculous how our bodies come back, because now I feel so regulated, and it shows me, wow, this is where I was just a week ago, and this is where I am now. And that's how, miraculous our bodies are. But also, wow, it's like when we're so in it, we don't even recognize how much like how much these screens are impacting our brain and like our dopamine. And we like, of course, that's like the AI conversation of people having relationship with AI and getting like their pleasure from AI rather than like friendships and relationships. And we don't have to go there, but you know, it's just so obvious when people do have the opportunity to take a step back. And I will say too, like, since really following, you know, I get the notification from my circadian, like, hey, sunrise. And sometimes I used to miss it if I was working on my phone, but now I never miss it. And I'll go outside and I've been sleeping more. Like, I've been sleeping, instead of 8 hours, it's been more of like 9.5. And it feels really good. And I know that with women are supposed to sleep more than men. But yeah, just the way that it impacts sleep quality is absolutely insane. And yeah, oh my gosh, I love it so much. Like, it's just amazing to me how a couple of my friends and my fiance are like, wow, you're acting so much happier. It's like, well, yeah, I feel like my dopamine has like completely regulated in such a short period of time. And it's just undeniable. So
yeah.
But
yeah, and then UVA light, that's when you're getting out there for that time period. That's kind of what I mentioned earlier with those aromatic amino acids in your eyes, capturing that light. And that's where we make serotonin, which gets recycled into that night's melatonin. So your night of sleep and how well you sleep and how much melatonin your pineal gland can actually make in your sleep, it starts in that morning time. And so when people are going into this shift of like daylight savings time is ending and shorter days, longer nights, really, really doubling down on morning time. If that means you're driving to work and you roll your window down, right? If that means you're in your kitchen getting your kids ready and you open your door and put your head out for 30 seconds and then go back in. And like, people think it has to be all or nothing. Like they can't, you know, go outside in the backyard and ground and have this like, you know, lovely time, that it's not worth it. But even little 30 seconds here, a minute here, just bursting outside and getting that natural signal in your eyes is extremely valuable, because light is, you know, just, it's cumulative, right? So if you can only have 5 minutes on Monday, but you can get 15 minutes on Tuesday, 3 minutes on Wednesday, but 30 minutes on Thursday, like that all over the period of the week will even out and will support you in, you know, those neurotransmitters or neurohormones and appetite regulation. You know, everybody's so obsessed with like weight loss, but in UVA light, especially if you can get that in the morning and couple that with brightness, the natural brightness that's outside, that's the lux, there's appetite regulation pieces in there. And we have a lot of science to actually back that up and show you like, hey, getting out there in the morning consistently helps you regulate your appetite, lower BMI, lower body fat, all of those things. And that is, again, like I said, we don't want to like freak out and like be myopic about science, but it's there. If people are skeptical, there is the research to back it up.
right. And when you bring up the lux, so the lux is just the unit of measurement for light in this case, right? So our phone has a certain lux, outside is a certain lux. So when we get above, does our phone get above the lux of what we're supposed to be receiving? Or you're saying that's just the exact lux of high noon? Because I know it mimics, but
Kelvin is the temperature, right? So we have like 3 different kind of like flavors of light. We've got the frequency, which is like infrared, near infrared, far infrared, UVA, UVB. Those are frequencies, right? And then we have Kelvin, which is the temperature. So the Kelvin outside, it, you know, around sunrise and sunset is like 1600. Your phone screen is around 5700, 6000. And then we have lux. Lux is like the brightness. And so lux indoors, even with a really bright light, is going to max out around 500. Lux around sunrise time typically is 1000, 1500. It climbs through the day. And in some place, it's going to, the closer you are to the equator, the higher the lux will be. Same thing with Kelvin. It can possibly get up to like 8,000. But, you know, lux can get up to 100,000 during the day. And then in the evening, it's again supposed to kind of go down, be nice and dim. So we got kind of like 3 flavors of light there. I don't really worry so much about the Kelvin, but Kelvin is just how I describe like the temperature, right? So light bulbs inside the house are 5700, 6000. Most LED fluorescents, your phone is 5700, 6000, right? And that's just a big blue light signal for your brain. It's like a large amount of blue light missing the lux. It's missing the appropriate brightness, because it's usually going to max out around 500. So it's just like a very, like, light in nature would never do that. You always have like near infrared, far infrared, UV for most of the day, UVA for most of the day, some parts of the world UVB for parts of the day, mixed in with color, temperature, and then appropriate amount of lux for that time of day. So light is this like, it's information for the brain, but it's not just like, okay, I'm going to put a light bulb up to my face and expect that to do the same thing as going outside.
I'm curious if like lux, does it go up at night with the full moon too? Because you know how it doesn't?
Yeah, I actually have in the My Circadian app, if you go to the lux measurement, there's a video, it'll say learn more about lux. And I have a whole video where I go through like all the studies on metabolism, and that's a free thing. Anybody who downloads the app can go watch that video. But it talks about how lux changes through the day. And then lux, even on a very full moon, is like less than 0.1. So full moon lux is not enough to disrupt your sleep. It's not enough blue and green light, and it's not bright enough. It's more likely your neighbor's floodlight, you know, the street light, the car light, those things will definitely disrupt you, disrupt your sleep, because we want our sleeping environment to be 1 lux and below. And then that 3 hours leading up to bedtime, block blue and green, but also 10 lux and below is what we need for melatonin production. So yeah, I get that a lot with the moon, and there's a moon tracker in the app as well, so you can see what phase of the moon we're at. But yeah, even on a really bright full moon, and I have the study linked under that video that's like imprinted into the app, that shows, yeah, even on a super bright full moon, it's like 0.1. So it's not gonna mess you up.
Okay. Great. Good to know. Cause I was, you know how a lot of women will like go into labor around the full moon, or people will go into the hospitals, the ERs. My friend is dating an ER doctor, and he was saying that more people go into the hospitals during the full moon. And I know that's like some practitioners talk about parasites and stuff. So I didn't know if there was a correlation with the light, but okay, great. I know we wanted to chat like briefly about leptin and POMC. Sure. Yeah. Like, can you relate this conversation to POMC? Because I actually didn't know what POMC was until I heard it from you and Dr. Cruz. And I'm still trying to understand how it relates to this topic.
Yeah, so leptin is a master circadian signaling hormone. I talk about it a ton, and leptin resistance is essentially when the stored energy on your body and your brain are no longer having a communication. And so like your brain literally doesn't know how much energy that you have. And that's a big problem. And so leptin resistance actually happens before insulin resistance, and even before you get formally diagnosed with like prediabetes. And so again, it's just your body clock, your brain, the stored energy on your body not having a communication. And so POMC is this brain protein, right, that cleaves off and forms several neuropeptides, neurohormones, cortisol, and that's also stimulated by blue light. And so when you're essentially, the whole connection there is blue light from your phone, from overhead lights, that's like inappropriate for that time of day. It tells your brain to make cortisol and raise your blood sugar, even in the absence of food. And so that's what a lot of people don't understand about blue light, because people will kind of just say, oh, blue light this, blue light that. And it does sound to the outsider just like a bunch of garbage. Like, why are these people talking about this? It sounds so stupid. But this is the big problem, is that it's giving your brain this signal to make cortisol, raise insulin, dysregulate blood sugar, all of these things, right? And so we essentially don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes, I mean, again, as we talked about in the last IG live too, it all comes back to being so simple. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, like with where you live, do you have like blackout blinds for all the, like your neighbor's lights? And I know you have your own EMF protection, and do you like put tape in your refrigerator, like that red tape to block the light and things like that? Or is your goal to move somewhere like more isolated? I'm curious where you are in the scheme of things.
I am in the middle of Atlanta on a busy road, like EMF central, neighbors everywhere. I mean, it is like not an ideal circadian place to be. However, we've been able to really optimize it. We have a cosmic tower, which has a whole other conversation, kind of goes into the whole biogeometry realm, which is a whole other, whole other topic. But I do have blackout curtains in my bedroom, in the kids' bedrooms have blackout curtains. You know, I've got circadian lighting in the house. We don't really use light bulbs. We have tons of windows and natural light here. And so I don't really use a bunch of light bulbs. I will use like a red light panel on the floor. I've got this little Bon Charge guy that I will use as a flashlight if I need to like get around at night. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I've got little red night lights in the hall, you know, like, so I have a set up. I have our home hardwired. But yeah, I got Wi-Fi everywhere. The eventual goal is to get up to North Georgia, more secluded, you know, that's the goal. I'm working on it, but I think it's completely possible for you to thrive and for you to heal in the city if you know how to be strategic. You know, if you know like how to sync your light and dark, how to eat appropriately, because you want to eat seasonally, you want to try to eat as locally as possible. We've got a lot of wonderful farms here in Georgia, so I'm blessed with that. And know when and how to practice ketosis if you should. Things like cold therapy, sauna therapy, using those appropriately. So yeah, all those things kind of fit in, and they're tools that can be helpful as well.
I love how you balance it with where everyone is at too, because if someone absolutely loves the city culture and it fuels them, makes them so happy, it's like there's so many solutions to stay and make it work too. And side note, I have a friend in Georgia. I'll have to connect you with her. She's an herbalist and she's like 80 acres and is doing this whole earth skills community. So I'll have to connect you with her. But where we are, last thing I want to say is our neighbors, like I have my red light on at night, and it's funny, sometimes I'll cook steak in the red light and I'll give it to my fiance. He'll be like, this is still not cooked, like this is rare, because you can't see in the red light. I'm like, what? But my neighbor, our house is completely red, and when we moved in, she was like, oh, like and she's probably like in her, I think she's 75, 76. She was like, oh, I've noticed that at night your lights are all red in your house, or what are you doing with that? And she was laughing with her husband of like, oh, are we like developing photos? Or are we like trying to grow something? And I was like, no, it's just for our circadian rhythm. I explained it to her, and she was like, oh my gosh, me and my friends are so overtaking all of these pills. I'm not on a single pill anymore. Wow. We are so over it. And my sister, when she was younger, she used to use chicken lamps to heal her acne, and she healed her acne when she was 15. So, you know, that was like 60 years ago. People were already doing this. So that was just a cute little story. And now she loves our red light and asks us about all the things. But, okay. Well, thank you so much for your time in this conversation. I was really excited to talk about daylight savings, and hopefully that's like a conversation that people continue to have and raise awareness about, because I think it's just something that everyone has accepted and not questioned. Yeah. But we're in the era of time where that's not happening anymore, which is great news.
And honestly, like more and more of us are talking about trying to be as sovereign as we possibly can and not being ruled by like other people's calendars and schedules. And I know, again, like that's not gonna be realistic for a lot of people, but like I said, I'm really lucky that I can still make the schedule here and keep everyone sleeping till sunrise time, and then shift the night, you know, bedtime a little early. I can do that gradually here. I don't have places I have to be because I make my own schedule, but for other people, you know, just be mindful of your morning time. Use things like a cold face plunge, breakfast, things like that to reinforce that morning sunlight signaling to really get yourself back on track, and then really honor the darkness of winter, honor the dimness at night. And that is going to really go a long way without you even changing your diet, you know, without you doing that, because I know that can be hard for people, but it's going to give you a lot more energy.
Yeah, there's so many solutions present here. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for everyone popping on here. I will be saving this, and I'll save all of the app information in the caption as well. And we will all chat soon. Bye, Sarah.
Bye.